welcome to another Dwarven Tavern review, this one. And we are talking about the Hackmaster's Guide, the Hackmaster Gamemaster's Guide, Hackmaster Master Guide. And we're getting into the adventure. Finally. Have you ever had anybody say that to you when you're dungeon mastering? You want to smack them? No. So, the adventure. What are they talking about in this book? Well, it's a dungeon master thing, the game master thing. I have a hard time saying game master. I always want to say dungeon master, which I think it's fair. That's fine. Because in D&D, you're a dungeon master, even if you're running an outdoor adventure. Now think about that. Okay, now stop. The adventure section of the Hackmaster Gamemaster's Guide, it covers encounter reactions, encounter results, feats of strength, like don't wash your socks, and you will have feats of strength. Torture, which it's a very cool subject, and I will talk about that when we get there. Long-term weariness and exhaustion, been there, I'm sure you have too. Sleep, dehydration, starvation, suffocation, and drowning. Extreme temperatures. Sprinkle. Setting stuff on fire. Moving in darkness, and vertical clearance for long-range missile fire, which is very important to know. If you're going to arc something, if you need to get out to the maximum range of your bow, you're going to have to point it up at 45 degrees. If you've got a long hallway, or a long flat like cavern that's only got like a 10-foot ceiling, you're not going to be able to shoot things that are a great distance away because of that. And you know, that's why role playing is such an awesome thing, because you cover things like physics and history and philosophy and all other things important to human existence or to humanity. That's deep. I'm sorry, I'll try not to ever do that again. This covers encounter reactions, which is like base modifiers and skills and proficiencies, like you know, culture and etiquette and rogues' influence on reactions and so forth. Bards, you know, have a good, often, unless you go in a country bar and start rapping. It takes into effect language skills, which is a plus. Class-based reaction adjustments. And when I say class, I'm talking about the various echelons of social status, as in, you know, are you po or are you a rich man? Are you wealthy? Are you opulent? Are you lucrative, as it were? So, and it also talks about feats of strength, and it has nothing to do with socks, I find out, which you should have guessed that already. I'm sure you have. For example, and this is a really cool table, and I'm going to be using it for my other games as well. It has a strength check for it's got a list of things, which is incredibly useful. I love lists of things, and it's on a table. So how much cooler could it be? Pour moi, right? If you want to roll a boulder no taller than oneself, that would be yourself, then that's a +5 to whatever your DC is your strength check. And if you want to roll a really big boulder, it's +16, really, as in hard. Lifting a gate is +19. Holding a sliding wall. You ever seen all those movies that have the wall that's crushing and the people try to hold it and they don't? Well, you can do it. You can hold it. But it's a freaking +20 difficulty to do so. So, and then of course you also have the heroic ripping out of the manacles from said imprisonment wall. It's very cool. Now, it's good. So then it brings us to torture. Now, torture is important. it sounds heinous. What kind of man is this? For story purposes, torture is incredibly important, an important facet of any antagonist, because what is an antagonist? What is a bad guy? What is a villain? What is evil if they don't do anything heinous? If they don't do anything bad, how can you possibly consider them to be the bad guy, right? Because I was just reading this. I was reading an article about an American sniper in Vietnam who found this woman general. She was a Viet Cong general, and they called her the Apache because she was. And I know there's no political correctness about this, so just get over it. They called her the Apache. It was her code name because she so happily, merrily tortured American soldiers and the like. She tortured them often to death, if not always to death, and did horrible, mutilating things to them. And the sniper crawled for, and this was what the article was about, he crawled for 3 days across an open field of, I think it was 2 kilometers of just open field where they could see him. And he had to move so slow it took him 3 days to do so. And caught her out and about and only recognized her as a female because she had to go to the bathroom and was using a female position to do so. And he said he knew that was her. So he put a shot in her, took her out, and then he said that they hated her so much, or there was so much prejudice against her, her horrible methods, that he actually put 2 shots in her. After the first one had killed her pretty visibly, and you can imagine, he put another shot in her for good measure. Okay, now, that whole sniper, 1 shot, 1 kill. How much bad guy do you have to be? You ever think about this? How much bad guy do you have to be to make a sniper, a 1 shot, 1 kill sniper, to completely ruin their record by putting 2 shots in you? And that's torture. That's because she was a torturer. Because there is no, I don't think there is any good person who will willingly torture someone for the sake of torturing. There's a lot of controversy about this subject. But in the game, in real life, torture is awful and it's horrible, and it might be necessary, even though it's not. It's not a desirable thing at all. I would do it if the conditions demanded it, but I would not be happy about it, because it makes you a bad guy, right? Even if you're doing it for a good cause, you're still a bad guy. So in real life, it's an incredibly controversial subject. In the game, it's horribly useful. Nothing is more damning to an antagonist than when he tortures a player character. If your player characters do it, that threatens alignments right there, unless they're evil or neutral, and even then, that leans toward evil. So when a bad guy tortures a player character, captures them, then you can have a whole session of making them hate this guy, because nothing makes one person hate another person more than that person torturing or being tortured by the other guy, that person. So this has rolls where you roll competing percentile dice, and you add Um, do, 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 do. Da, 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 da. A contested skill check versus it's weird I couldn't find this, versus resist persuasion, right? Nothing says persuasive like a red hot rod. Then you roll, and if it is a failure, then the person passes out. The tortured soul passes out, can reveal false but plausible information, and this is from degrees of failure. The worst failure, they just pass out. The highest success of the torturer, they just spill their guts, and I don't mean literally. And so it's just varying degrees of what they tell, and it's very nicely delineated on page 68. So the torture damage is actually a master a master torturer can get away with 1 point of damage. Okay, and that's where the phrase, I forget what movie it's from, so if you want to leave this in the comments, please. But there was a movie where the guy said, I will kill you for whatever reason. And it will take me like a month to kill you, and you will be begging for death after the first 5 minutes. That is a master torturer. And we're not just talking about, ripping off fingernails and stuff like that. A master torturer will do a point of damage per session. And according to this, a session doesn't last very long. I can't find where it says how long a session was, but it's physical pain, unskilled. But if you're a novice, then your damage is 2d4p, which means the p means if you roll a 4, then you roll it over. So it can actually be up to 3 dice of damage. Which, if you're a novice, then you're like, oh, I'm going to torture you. Cuts off a leg. Rips out spine. Tell me. Sorry, Bob, he's dead. You need to learn your stuff a little better. So, this is good. Again, good stuff. Really good stuff. Long-term weariness and exhaustion. The rules thereof. Sleep. Extreme temperature, suffocating and drowning. All these things are covered in very, very good detail. Very high detail. And it's organized well. The only thing that I'm not crazy about is the glossy paper, but I would prefer a semi-gloss or a matte. But it's a very pretty book. I mean, it's very, very visually appealing when the light's not like directly at you. And I really like the full colored tables. That had to be an expensive venture because most books don't have full colored tables from what I remember. And then it's got spell casting, spell failure due to protective gear, which is a thing that I'm going to bookmark and use it for all my games, because when you wear armor and stuff, there's a % chance of spell failure. So this has a thing for that, and it's a table. Yes, it's almost like having a flag if you're a fan of Eddie Izzard. Then it's got spell volatility, which it says arcane spellcasting distorts the natural laws of physics to achieve its ends, and such tampering always carries risks, right? Pushing these fragile incantations to their limits by amping them up, like you drink a monster beforehand, like a Tarrasque or a troll or a Otyug. Greatly increases these risks. Maintaining control over these volatile forces requires great focus. Dark mantle, drink a dark mantle. And mental acumen. So, the spell volatility rating is based on the spell level, normal casting, amped up casting, or over amped casting. And that gives them a spell volatility rating. And so then you have to see what the spell volatility rating is and its threshold, which is an intelligence plus a d20p saving throw or save roll. And for example, if the spell volatility is over amped to 105 to 114, then the threshold is a 25. So you roll that. If you don't make it, you've ripped the fabric of space and time, crossed the streams, as it were. And the severity of the spell mishap, if it fails by 3 to 10, you have a tier 1 through tier 8 mishap. So, what are the mishaps, you ask? I'm glad you asked. It can be artificial if it's a tier 1, which is a very minor mishap. Then the caster sustains a point of damage. Artificial illumination changes color. Sunlight is unaffected. Spellcaster glows. That can be horrible. Like, oh, there he is. Get him. Spellcaster lets massive fart rip. In the book. It's in the book. Flashbang spell centered on the caster. Terrible, terrible things. All the way up to tier 8, which, wow. Yeah, I knew these were bad. Caster enters a permanent vegetative state and will die per the dehydration rules. You done messed up, right? Lose the ability to cast spells permanently. Suffer permanent loss of 3d6 hit points. Permanent -2 to all ability scores. Tier 8. Man, just tier 8. Caster implodes. Creating a small black hole that sucks anything within 10-foot radius into it and then closes. That would probably leave a mark. Then you got rogue spellcasting. Though they are not formally trained arcane spellcasters and lack phrenic conditioning that their schooled counterparts take for granted. Their approach is pragmatic to the extreme with no knowledge of theory. In essence, they know how a few magical tricks work, but not why. This slapdash technique has a number of repercussions, as you might imagine. So you can go into, you can get a nosebleed, to Rogue's Mind Totally Blasted, has 1 intelligence, a 1. Epileptic fits, migraines, melancholy, etc., etc. So that can be bad. And that's all in the spellcasting part. Then it has things like rules for overland movement, going faster, pulling wheeled wagon or cart, mounts a cart, or cart, period, mounts, and pack animal descriptions, training horses, water transit, via ocean or via river travel. Going faster is, of course, there are tables for each thing, and how it affects the fatigue, going the extra mile, encumbrance effects, and all that good stuff. So it's pretty exhaustive. Pun intended. Then the next chapter is what happens between adventures, which is always an interesting aspect of gaming. What do you do in your downtime? What can you do? I don't know if any of my campaigns ever have downtime, but I'm sure they do. Formal versus self-training, which is I wrote my own self-training event table about how to train oneself, and the experience points gained from training oneself. So from now seriously, if you do your homework, you do your push-ups and your sit-ups and you go jogging and you practice with your sword by yourself with a book or whatever, like a kendo book or whatever, you're going to learn very slowly, but you're going to learn. Nothing beats experience, actual experience. If you spar with someone, that's not real experience, but it's still experience. The kumite, which martial artists do with each other and by themselves, where they do the kata, then that is the practice, and that is getting the muscle memory. That's making blah, blah, and while it's not in combat with all the adrenaline and other body fluids flying everywhere, when you block with a block, then your muscle memory from practice beforehand should kick in. You say, okay, well, this guy's attacking me here. I blocked it. It's slower to learn that way versus being in real fights all the time, which you can't really do anymore without getting in a lot of trouble, unless you're a professional. And even then, you can get that living crap beat out of you. But the rules here are pretty simple. Alternatively, a character may continue to self-train when advancing in level, though deceptively attractive due to the greatly reduced cost. Reliance on self-training throws a number of barriers in the way of the PCs. Training time increases to 3 weeks. Weapon specialization capped at +2. Skill mastery capped at 75. Though this restriction may be bypassed by double BP expenditure. And cannot learn new skills. Do I agree with that? Not entirely. Some of the things that I know best are things that I've learned by myself, skill-wise. So I don't entirely agree with that, but I think it's a good rule. Like computer use. I mean, not in here, but just using computers. I'm widely self-taught. My degree is in education. My master's degree is in education, but I teach computers, and I taught myself computers, which is a skill. So, okay. But for this, sure, I could say that. You can't just go out in the woods and teach yourself how to tie knots. Or can you? Think about it. Let me know. Leave a comment. And, of course, it's got the advantages of formal training, which are should be self-apparent. It's got availability of training by institution and type, by institution type, which is incredibly cool. It's got a Kobar, University, Monastic, a Thieves Guild, an Assassin's Guild, a Beggars Guild, and Chivalric. So if you want to become a skilled liar, you certainly can't go to a Chivalric Academy and say, I'd like to learn how to lie. And they would say, okay, how about this? Blech. There you go. There's your lying. That's what lying gets you. Gets you a chivalric sword and a soft palate. Then it has repairing weapons and quality of goods and all that good Dungeon Master stuff that you need to know between adventures. And then it has character vitals, covers that, which are aging effects, group honor and fame, which in my universe we have a group called the Test Guy, which was my first edition gaming group, and they've been around forever, and they're like translated into second edition, then into third edition, and they're quite the legendary characters because they've been around for so long. That's group fame. Then it has oaths, social status, fame, and infamy, new proficiencies. Seems out of place, but it's not. Like nautical. Talents and skills, notes, existing quirks and flaws, which is always important if you want to just roll up a character with its own thing. Quite an informative book. It's got a lot of information in it. So let's move on. Skills, new skills, engineering. This is very cool. And so forth. Then when we return, we'll go, hopefully get the rest of the book covered, starting with 0 level characters. So again, this is the Hackmaster Guide, Gamemaster's Guide, Hackmaster, Master Hacker, Game Master's Guide from Kenzerco. Don't forget to look them up at kenzerco.com because they're awesome. They put out a lot of good stuff. Of course, I have to gauge everything on its own merits. That's important because when you start riding on your laurels, you get lazy. But these guys have not rested on their laurels so far. So there you go. And look us up at dwarventavern.net and leave comments. Let me know what you think. If you're a Hackmaster player, leave some comments. Tell us your deal, or if I missed anything, or if I should add anything, or whatever. And on behalf of the whole cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am Dr. Jeff Goins, and I wish for you to want for nothing but adventure. At first I feared it, then I charged. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Let the